right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we are now going to get into talking about the Indianapolis Colts and their season and what they have done in the offseason so far, what they could potentially do in the draft. So the Colts, team that people thought were going to take the next step this year and be in the mix for a wild card, but that ended up not. Well, they finished 8-9 on the year, so they weren't an awful team, but they were average. They were an average team. People were hoping for Anthony Richardson to take that next step. Didn't really play that much in his rookie season, and he was not great. He was not great. So they got off to a tough start, 0-2 on the year. They lose to the Texans in a highly competitive game. Anthony Richardson only completed 9 passes in that game, but it's weird because he struggled with the short intermediate routes or intermediate passes, but like the long passes, I mean, he could chuck the ball 60 yards. He had that one pass to Alec Pierce in the game. He had 3 receptions for 125 yards in the game. But yeah, the Colts ended up losing 29-27. Then they lose to the Malik Willis Packers, 16-10 in Lambeau. Richardson was not great in that game. He threw 3 interceptions. They did win their next 2. They beat Caleb Williams and the Bears. Richardson left the game with an injury. Flacco came in, and they knocked off the Steelers. So they won 27-24. Then Flacco played the following week. They ended up losing to the Jaguars 37-34. Then against the Titans, they won 20-17. Flacco played in that game. And then Richardson did come back for the game against the Dolphins, and they won that game. That game was pretty ugly. They won 16-10. Richardson went 10 of 24 on the season, or 10 of 24 in the game for 129 yards. So yeah, they won that. Then they ended up losing to the Texans in a close game, 23-20. Again, completed 10 passes, 10 of 32. Now, this was the game that Anthony Richardson, tapped on his helmet, and he took himself out of the game, which is something that I have never seen before in watching football. You just will, no injury, nothing. Just say, yeah, I got to tap out of this. So that led to him being benched. Flacco came in the following week against the Vikings. They ended up losing that game. They lost against the Bills. So they were 4-6 at that point. Then Richardson came back in for the game against the Jets. They pulled off a comeback win. Richardson definitely looked a little bit better in this game. They ended up losing to the Lions 24-6 the following week, but then they beat the Patriots. Richardson threw a game-winning touchdown, and then they went for 2 and they got it. So that got them to 6-7 at that point. They went into the bye. They came out of the bye, and they had the Broncos had 5 takeaways against them. They lost 31-13, and that was the game where Jonathan Taylor ran in the touchdown and dropped the ball in the end zone. But yeah, Richardson threw 2 interceptions. He went 17-38, and you had Jonathan Taylor fumbled, like I said, Michael Pittman and Adonai Mitchell. They all fumbled. But then they beat the Titans. Richardson went 7 of 11. You know why they won? Because Jonathan Taylor had over 200 yards and had 3 touchdowns. That's why they won the game. So that got them to 7-8. So they were still in it. They were still, they still had a chance to, maybe sneak into the playoffs. And then the Giants put up 45 points against them. The Colts defense, they let the Giants have almost 400 yards of total offense. The Giants averaged 7.3 yards per play. Drew Lock had a day, 4 touchdown passes in the game. And a rushing touchdown. Malik Neighbors, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns in the game. Now, the Colts did put up over 400 yards of total offense in the game. Jonathan Taylor, over 100 yards, rushing and 2 touchdowns. But what an embarrassing loss there. And then Flacco played the final game of the regular season, and the Colts won that. So they finished 8-9 on the year. And looking at the stats, Anthony Richardson, his completion percentage was not great. He only had 1,800 yards passing, 8 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. Flacco was better, had a better passer rating, or quarterback rating, had a better touchdown interception ratio. had around the same passing yards as Anthony Richardson. Yeah, it was not great. And then, Jonathan Taylor had a solid year, 11 touchdowns, 1,400 yards rushing. Anthony Richardson did have 6 touchdown runs, 499 yards rushing. Alec Pierce was their leading receiver. He had 824 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. Michael Pittman had 3 touchdowns. He had 800 yards receiving. And Josh Downs also had 800 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. So the Colts have a good, young receiving core. We'll see if they add another weapon, but, they do have a good receiving core. Zaire Franklin was their leading tackler, of course, on defense. He had 3.5 sacks and 5 forced fumbles. Their sacks leader, Kwity Paye, had 8. DeForest Buckner had 6.5. So they were a team that did get after the quarterback. You look at their defensive rankings. I mean, yeah, against the pass, they were not good. Total yards allowed per game, they were 29th. They were 24th in points allowed per game. They were 26th in passing yards allowed per game and 24th in rushing yards allowed per game. But they were 24th in sacks. I thought they'd be a little bit higher, but I guess not. Interceptions, actually, they were 5th. But, the defense was not great. Now, they did go out and improve the secondary. They signed Charvarius Ward from the 49ers. Defense needs improvement. And then offensively, they were 13th in total yards per game, 17th in points per game. So the offense wasn't, Anthony Richardson was not great, but throwing the football, because they ranked 25th in passing yards per game. But, running the football, they were top 10. Points per game, like I said, middle of the pack, and then total yards per game. They did lose some guys on the offensive line. So hopefully, they can replace them. But, you have Quinn Nelson, who's, still one of the best offensive lines in the league. But, yeah, the Colts went out in free agency. And, like I said, they signed Charvarius Ward. They signed Cameron Bynum. They signed Khalil Herbert to back up Jonathan Taylor. Who else did they sign? Oh, yeah, and they also signed Daniel Jones. So obviously defense, I think, is something they could definitely address in the draft. That's probably what they will do, maybe with their first pick, or maybe they go offensive line since they lost, some guys on the line. But running back they're fine. Receiver, I don't think they should go with receiver. Maybe they draft a tight end. But I don't think they're going. Maybe they draft a quarterback in the later rounds, but I don't know. This is going to be a big year. I think they go defense in the draft. Quarterback position. When it comes to Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, the Colts said that they wanted to bring in competition for Anthony Richardson. And they brought in Daniel Jones. They gave him a 1 year. I think it was $14 million. And I would not be surprised if Daniel Jones ends up being the starter at some point during the year. I would not be surprised. If Anthony Richardson struggles, they'll pull the plug on him and put in Daniel Jones. Now, does that mean Daniel Jones is going to go out there and play really well? Not necessarily. But Daniel Jones, when he has played well, it's usually when he has a good running game. Now, Jonathan Taylor is not Saquon Barkley, but Jonathan Taylor is a pretty good running back. So that could definitely, benefit Daniel Jones if he steps in. And, he's a mobile quarterback himself. And they got decent weapons. The offensive line needs some revamping now. But Daniel Jones could definitely step in, and this would be a much better situation than, with the Giants, the last couple of years. So Anthony Richardson, it's up to him to say, no, you're not taking my job. And he goes out there and he shows that, hey, I'm the guy in Indy. And the Colts, they have failed to find that replacement. They were hoping it's going to be Anthony Richardson, and right now it doesn't look like that. But I thought he did show you something when he came back from being benched. I thought he played better, but, he's still got more to learn. And I think he was working out with Josh Allen. This offseason, he's putting his head down, and you hope that he puts in the work and then he comes out and is a different guy. I think we could see that. I think we could see a different version of Anthony Richardson next year. And especially, when you had him tapping out of the game, that was a bad look for him. And I think he definitely learned a lot from that. Letting Flacco start, it was good that you had Joe Flacco, an experienced veteran there. Um, you know, hopefully he learns from this because the talent is there. Like I said, guy could chuck the ball 60 yards down the field, no problem. Guy's a big quarterback that can, be mobile, and you don't want him to take too many hits because that's kind of why he got hurt his rookie season. And, you think about Cam Newton and the amount of hits he took when he would take off and run with the football. And, you've seen that with Josh Allen. I hope Anthony Richardson does pan out. My friends were big Anthony Richardson guys. Now they're all kind of jumped off of that bandwagon. So, we'll see what happens. But like I said, this is a big year for Anthony Richardson. It's a huge year. So we'll see how it goes. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the Colts season. They finished 8-9. I think I had them at 9-8, so I had them around, the same record. But, I was hoping for a better year out of Anthony Richardson, and we didn't get that. But, yeah, the Colts offensive line needs some work. We'll see what happens with the quarterback. Defense, I think, is the main priority with the draft. They got to improve it. And, they did do that. Like I said, they signed a couple of guys in the secondary. So, we'll see how it goes. But that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in once again. Make sure to check out all the other shows on the network. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to them. Also, subscribe to the channels. Make sure to check us out wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to listen to us on the go, we greatly appreciate that. And, yeah, as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.